friends, this is Jared from Fanboys Forever, and today we have yet another review for you. And this time, following up our review of Batman Supreme Knight, we have the Mezco Harley Quinn Deluxe version, and I'm very excited about this figure. Been looking forward to her for a long time. So of course, if this is something you're interested in, I suggest you get it sooner rather than later. There is another Harley Quinn that was put up for pre-order who's more of the roller derby kind of Harley, but it's not nearly as traditional as this one, which is based more on the animated series. So without further ado, let's have a closer look. We're going to start out with the head sculpt here, and there are 3 interchangeable head sculpts, and as we go through the review, I'll be showing you all 3 at different sections, but for the sculpt, this is the one that she comes packaged with, and I have to say this one is extremely impressive. She kind of has the cocked smile to one side. This is kind of more of the mischievous, sort of sneaky head sculpt for sure, and so I really like this one. It's very cool. We can see that the sculpt is extremely realistic. As a matter of fact, I would venture to say that this is one of the more realistic head sculpts that Mezco has ever done, actually. It's funny because this looks just as realistic as any of their sculpts that are supposed to be based on like movie characters. So I am very impressed with this. If it reminds me of anything sculpt-wise, it reminds me of the Alex Ross paintings of the Batman animated series design. And so I think this is just a beautiful representation. You can see there's even subtle stitching there on the top of the hood. You can see that she has the little palms on the side. And they're so well sculpted that these look to be almost like a fuzzy material, but they're not. They're hard plastic, believe it or not, but they look a lot like these, and we'll get to these a little bit later. But you can see the domino mask, and we have the lips and everything are just so realistically sculpted. And to the back, we see that sculpting carries on with the stitch work and those subtle little kind of shadows that suggest that it's kind of wrinkled up fabric on the sides. So it looks very convincing. Moving on down, because of the great sculpting up here, we can hardly tell a transition to actual fabric. Of course, this is super close up, but from your regular distance, I mean, it's almost impossible to differentiate it. We have the outfit here. I really do like the outfit and what they've done with it. I really like how it looks. There has been a little debate about kind of the little palms up here that's on her collar. I think they mostly look good when they're laying down correctly, so let's talk about that. All these are fine. These 3 right here are a-okay. But the way that she was packaged, she was put in there with this being kind of wrinkled. You can see the line right there. So this one pops up even if I try to put it down. So that can be a little annoying, but I think that with a little moisture and a little heat, I could probably take that off the figure pretty easily because it is removable. You just pop the head sculpt off and this collar comes right off. And I could probably get that to lay down. I've seen other people, they use the, I think, DC Icons Harley Quinn collar, and it looks really good on it, and that's awesome. I don't have that. The same thing kind of happens with this one, where it just pops up just enough to be slightly annoying. But if I can get those 2 sorted out with a little heat and a little water, it shouldn't be a problem. But be careful whatever you do here. Of course, this is rotatable, so you can rotate it around, but it looks kind of funny when you start to mess with it too much. So that is one thing that I'm a little disappointed by on the figure. I was hoping that would be sorted out a little bit better. I'll tell you what probably could have solved the whole thing is if these were a little more weighted, but instead these are literal just poofs. You know, they're very kind of light, and there's not enough weight to keep these anchored down the way that they should be. So they kind of pop up when they're not supposed to. Moving on to the rest of the costume here, we have the diamonds on the sleeve, which are very nice. And you can actually see that they've opted to stitch the figure into the costume on the sides, right above the little pleather areas, over here and over here. And that's good because you avoid the big stitch up here. But if you're going to the side, it is fairly noticeable. And in some ways, maybe it would have been better if they had just put the stitch going up here like they usually do. But, you know, it just depends on your preference. I suppose if you're taking a photo from behind, I suppose it looks better for that purpose, not as noticeable the other way. But certainly from the sides, the stitching is a little more noticeable than usual. As for this black pleathery kind of stuff, it's more like a coating of some sort that they apply to the regular kind of spandexy bodysuit. And I'll be honest, I'm not sure how this is going to hold up over time. It feels fine now, and it feels like a light coating. As a matter of fact, you can still see all the stitch work. It's just like it's coated it. but I'm not sure about it. It almost feels, it definitely makes me a little curious about what this is going to do. Moving on down to the little wrists, we have these little things, and they're just kind of like her gauntlets, and they're very finely detailed. I really like these things. It almost looks like the decoration on a cake, and believe it or not, these are not solid plastic. They're a kind of fabric, and you can see them flex a little bit as I touch them, and they're glued into place, and I really think these are super impressive. I just think that I wasn't expecting that. I thought they would just be hard plastic and they would be fine, but I actually really like the way they went on this. Moving on down, we can see the outfit just continues with some more diamonds here. And on the back, of course, we have some more. Kind of have her ankle-high boots right here. And we can see that those are very finely sculpted as well, but there's nothing really to write home about there in terms of sculpt. Harley comes with an unmasked head sculpt, and this one is very, very impressive. The lifelike nature of their sculpting for this particular release is just out of this world. I think these are some of the best head sculpts they've actually done for any of their figures. These are as high quality head sculpts that we've ever gotten on a Harley. This one has all of the subtle lifelike detail you could possibly want, and it just basically takes that Batman the Animated Series design and it pumps it full of realism and life. Even the hair is kind of swaying, as you can see, forward in the wind. All the little hairs are sculpted in, have the bangs. It all looks very accurate to that original Bruce Timm and Paul Dini version. We also have the makeup, and all of the subtle paint work that's going on here is really incredible. And the best part is there's no kind of QC or any kind of problems with that paint on the head sculpt. So that is tremendous. They even went to the trouble of doing 2 different colored scrunchies to represent the 2 sides of her mask. So I just think this is great. And it is the only head sculpt that is kind of expressionless and stoic. But I think that's actually appropriate, because in the series, as we saw many times, Harley would take her mask off if she was upset or sort of distraught. So I do think it's appropriate that this is the one that's kind of expressionless. But before we talk about articulation, we'll look at our final head sculpt, and I saved what I believe is the very best for last. Here we have Harley Quinn with her laughing head sculpt, and we have seen companies like Hot Toys fail with extreme happy expressions, like with their Paul Rudd head sculpt on their Ant-Man figure. But oh my, this one is fantastic. I mean, look at that. It really takes that realism to the next level. Everything is sculpted to the nines. The paint work is awesome and perfectly applied. The eyes are very striking and blue. Everything in the mouth is perfectly sculpted. All of the teeth individual. We have the tongue and the inner part of the mouth, all perfect work. You can even see the rim of the lipstick where it doesn't extend all the way into her lips. And they have just really outdone themselves here. And you may be noticing on camera that none of these heads that I've shown you are a pure white exactly. They're almost kind of have a flesh tone. And that is a little more apparent on camera, I'm seeing. And in hand, it's a little more white looking. But I will say there is definitely a flesh tone color quality to these heads. And I really like that, because it almost suggests that she's just wearing makeup, and I like that. Of course, they did the same thing with their Joker head sculpts for those releases, and check out my MDX Joker review if you want to see that. So I really appreciate that. It just adds to that extra realism, and of course the mask is sculpted just as great as it was earlier. So this head sculpt is absolutely a knockout. Looking at articulation, we know that Mezco hasn't always delivered the best when it comes to their female body type and its articulation, but we're going to see how this one holds up and if there's any surprises. I'm going to take the bottom of the sleeve, and you can see how you can rotate it like that. Well, as you move this arm up, you'll want to rotate that sleeve around, and this keeps it from tearing or bunching in a way that might hurt that rubbery kind of layer that's over it. And that way you can eventually get it just as high as the other one without it kind of wrinkling or tearing or anything like that. And you can hold poses like this without fear of it leaving those weird indentations that some people get. So that is one good thing that you can do by just taking the bottoms of the sleeves like that and just rotating them around as you work. So that is one thing you want to keep in mind. The other arm, on the other hand, can go all the way up, and I don't feel uncomfortable about it at all. And all the way out to the side. Of course, this one can go all the way out to the side here, and it's fine. So I am not as comfortable with this side as I am this side. We also have a single joint at the elbow, and of course it can swivel. Unfortunate, because there's nothing blocking a great double joint on this elbow. It would have been perfect, and I really think Harley could have used it for some of her more expressive moments. Unfortunately, then we have a figure like Supreme Knight who has the double joint, but the gauntlets are so big that it blocks it. So Mezco is kind of striking out with some of their elbow articulation, unfortunately. Down here we have a total rotation, of course, at the wrist, and that's on both hands. And there is a hinge that can go up and down. You can see it in there, and you can, of course, rotate that if you wish, and you can do about anything you want when it comes to the wrist. On the diaphragm, we can have Harley go forward about that much, so it's actually a pretty decent range. And she can lean back quite a bit, and that is very good because that's essential for the Alex Ross pose, the famous one where she is with the Joker and they're dancing. She does need to be able to lean back pretty well to be able to do that. We also don't seem to have much of a rotation at the waist. That's kind of about what it does. And there's no real rotation up here at the diaphragm either. So there's a little bit, just barely enough to have her turn just slightly, but you can't even hardly notice it on camera. So I think that's kind of a bummer. I definitely think that kind of rotation should be an easy one to do with a figure that's just basically in a solid bodysuit. On the legs, we have this one able to go up pretty well all the way, so that's not bad. And then over here, with the one with kind of the rubber coating, we can go up almost all the way, but once again, it kind of makes me uncomfortable. Do you see how it goes inside of it like that? Still feel slightly uncomfortable about leaving it like this. You can certainly get it that far up, but leaving it like that, I am a little bit afraid of an indentation, but it does seem fine. And unfortunately, with this bodysuit, this part kind of goes down. The inseam is, you can see where the sculpt actually ends up here, and the inseam is a little too far down. And most of the time, you're not going to notice it, but as soon as you do like this, it becomes a little more obvious. And so that is unfortunate, but as long as they're together fairly close, you're not going to see it as much. You see how it kind of goes back. Also, we have a rotation at the leg, so you can turn it different ways. Now, once again, with the one with this coating, you can, but I don't want to do it too much. It really discourages on those sides that extreme kind of posing. So down here at the knee, we can go about 90 degrees, but it is single joint. Once again, Mezco's female body kind of has those limitations. Down here at the ankles, we have a full rotation. It's not inhibited by anything. Then we have a hinge, but it's not much of one. It can go up a lot, but down, not much. And the same over here. It can go down just a little bit and up quite a bit. And for this, it's actually not the fault of the articulation. It's the boots themselves. So you can see there's that high top on the back. That restricts it from going down anymore. But where it's open on the front, you can get quite a bit going down. And that's good because I would definitely need her to lean forward more than I would to go back when I'm doing posing. There may be a slight rocker inside, but because these boots come up on the sides, you can't really use that. So really, you just get a forward and backwards movement, meaning that when it comes to standing Harley on her own without her base stand, it's kind of difficult to do. You've got a combination of, there we go, okay. But you've got a combination of small feet sculpts along with the articulation not having a great range, and that's not really a great way, that's not really a great combination. So you can see I had to like lean her back kind of in a funny way. But as long as you're using her included display stand, chances are you're not going to have many issues like that. So just a couple of things worth noting. And for the head, we have quite a bit of articulation. We can look all the way up and quite a bit down. You can bury your chin pretty far. And then you can go side to side a lot, actually. And that's one good thing about the skinny kind of little necks on the female buck that Mezco uses, is it offers you quite a bit of range, especially when there's no hair sculpt blocking things. So for this, since it's all in the mask, and of course the one with the 2 pigtails, the unmasked head is going to be the same way. So you get quite a bit of range there. Overall, the articulation is certainly serviceable, and I'll be able to do what I need to do with it, but there's quite a few disappointments. It's kind of holding Mezco back when it comes to some of their female figures, most of all those elbows. All right, let's talk about accessories. So first off, we're going to look at a wild one. It is her rocket launcher that Harley has. You can see I have the effect in here. There's kind of a subtle kind of transition between the smoke, and it looks really great with the missile here. I'm just going to take that right out here, and we can see that we have the actual rocket launcher itself. She has kind of a direct hit count on the side. Looks like somebody's about to be her 13th target. She's got 12 so far. Kind of have little holes in the front. This looks very much like the rocket launcher from Commando, the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. You can't tell me that's not intentional. Over here, we kind of have the shoulder pad, and you can get it lined up better with shoulder than I have it. And then back here, we have kind of the telescoping portion. You can actually pull this all the way out. So that looks really nice. There's also a really nice dry brushing all the way through. You can kind of see that gradient there on the metal. Same for the top as well. It's even more obvious up there. And then you have this cool kind of crosshairs, like aiming sight. It's just painted black on the inside, and it's not transparent, but coupled with this head sculpt, it looks like she's almost wincing or kind of got one eye cocked to where she can get her aim a little bit better. And that is really cool. I think that's actually really nice. This handle on the side is actually posable, so depending on what angle you want her to hold it at, you can actually change that around. And it's a good thing it is posable too, because with Harley's single jointed elbows, you're going to need that kind of flexibility. Also, with these holes here on the front of the rocket launcher, you can put the effect on any of them, not just that one that I've shown you, and they all hold really securely. So it actually looks really nice. Look at that. That's some terrific action figure photography right there, especially, when you start playing with the focus a little bit, you can get some really fun shots. So I'm actually really crazy over this accessory, and I was actually quite shocked that it turned out as good as it did, especially with her being able to hold it so well and the head sculpt kind of lending itself to it. This one is a really fun one to start off talking about, but there is one strange little drawback or little mystery that I have, and it's funny, this is actually featured on the back of the box and in all the promo pictures. Originally, there is a cover for this front part right here that's supposed to hinge off over here to the side to open up this part, and it says "say ah" like someone's yelling. So that's gone. There's like none of the tooling that was originally on the side for the hinge is there. It's totally absent. And so something changed during production. Not sure what, but it seems kind of rare for this to happen with a Mezco release. So that's kind of strange. I don't really know what happened per se, but they really should have made sure that that wasn't on the back of the box. So it's definitely a little odd. So once you get Batman in on the mix, you can do some really fun things with this rocket launcher. Look at that. Instant. It's so much fun. You can kind of go to the side here like she's just barely missing him. And it's great because you can just lay it on his shoulder and it looks like a near miss. So there's lots of fun you can have with this. You can reverse the pose and kind of, I'm doing it without their display stand, so it's untelling if I can balance them just so, but I'll certainly try. Yeah, that works. And so you can get all sorts of cool shots with these guys. I've actually been having my Batman Beyond figure dodge this missile in my display since he's flying. We have Harley's giant hammer that she keeps. This is really cool looking. I like the little wood grain that's kind of very subtle on there, but it's there. You also have kind of where it's been used pretty frequently. You sort of have a wash there. On the side, you have some of that grain effect I was talking about. It almost looks like a barrel that she's got on a stick, which I think is definitely accurate to the look. There's kind of those bracers you would see on a barrel. Wood grain effect continues on down, and there's all these cool kind of ribbons to where it's on the handle. And then at the bottom, you can see that they're not painted perfectly by any means, but they're certainly painted well enough for the purposes of such a very tiny little handle on a 6-inch scale accessory. So I really like this. Unfortunately, because of that single jointed elbow, you can only get her to do that much with it. If you had double joints, you'd be able to have it kind of lay over her back a little. Now you can still cheat it though, especially if you're using this side, because it's a little more flexible with the pure spandex. Kind of do that right there. And of course, if you put it all the way out, you can get that sort of look. And I really like the way that this mallet looks. And she used it in Batman the Animated Series quite a bit, of course. And yeah, I think it looks really nice. Harley also comes with this little bomb. Kind of has a little kissy face on it, where she has actually kissed the thing, is ready to throw it out. It's kind of funny that it's red lipstick, and clearly no head sculpt has red lipstick. It's all the black that we would see on Batman the Animated Series on that design. So it is kind of funny, but you know, maybe it's just where she's painted it on there. But it's still pretty nice. It has kind of this fuse lit up here, and that's cool. Everything else is just kind of a Looney Tunes kind of cartoony bomb. So even though it's not the most imaginative accessory, I've been enjoying having like Batman looking at it and putting it in his hand in my display. She does come with an open hand. Suppose that this is the accessory that you would put in that open hand, so it looks quite nice once she has it. Harley also comes with a very, very basic grenade, and this is maybe the most useless of all of the accessories. I mean, you know, we've seen a million of these things before. I'm not even sure if it's a new sculpt necessarily. It's still nice, and it has some dry brushed kind of silver effect on there. But, you know, there's nothing specific about it. There's no kind of bat that she has spray painted on it or anything. So it is a little strange that they just put something so basic in. Next up, we've got Harley's pop gun right here. And this one is one of the most impressive accessories of all. On the side, we have kind of the candy cane striping and some of those diamond paint apps. And then on the front, this is really impressive. On the actual cork of the gun, we have what looks to be a dead bat that Harley has painted on. Actually, see, there's little X's painted on the eyes there. So that's pretty cool. And I also like that on the back of the gun, we'll switch to kind of a first-person view for a second. We have 4 Batman. So very funny. Like this thing a lot. Also, this is a surprise. Pop, comes right out, falls down on the cord like that. So I really love that this thing's actually removable. That was actually a big surprise and had no idea, and it goes back in there really securely. Now, the unfortunate thing is because of these single joints and the elbows, this is as far up as you can get it. It would have been great if we'd gotten those double joints and she could have got it kind of leaned back a little bit closer to her shoulder. And of course, she comes with a flight stand, which we're not going to show here, but she does include this stand. And I actually like this. This is nice because there's kind of a textured applique here, and it has the diamonds. This is actually different than what was shown on the original prototype pictures. Originally, they shown a diamond mask stand, and it's funny because they actually fixed that on the back of the box for those pictures, then they changed it to this. They did not fix the missile launcher cover still being there, so it's kind of funny, but yeah. And I've saved the best accessory for last, at least in my humble opinion. We have Harley's Joker doll, and I have her holding it, and this thing is fantastic. How awesome is this little guy? Look at all the subtle sculpt detail going on here. Every little line in the suit, there's all kinds of little wrinkles. You even have his stuffing as if he had come from Build-A-Bear Workshop. Can't find this there. Kind of coming out because he's either been well-loved or well-hated, either one. You can see he's got the cartoony fingers where he's just got 3 fingers and a thumb. Kind of have the dumpy little shoes there. And then on the face, very simple, but we actually have some stitching that's holding it together up here. The hair is really cool, very nice. There's a subtle black wash thrown in there to accentuate the hair. Then on the back, we even have stitching. This thing is fantastic. Even the pose that it's in, where it's by the one arm, it's almost to suggest he's being dragged along like a kid would drag it along. And it is so cool. And I'll tell you something that's interesting about this, is if you look closely, the suit that he's wearing really isn't representative of anything that Mezco has released so far. So is this a hint at a future Joker release? We can only hope, because I got news for Mezco. Ain't nobody able to find that MDX Joker if they didn't get it, you know, day one in the first, like, what, hour it was available or whatever. So, yeah, hopefully this is a hint that they will have people covered with more of a traditional Joker. Probably my favorite accessory. I actually like having Batman hold this thing and kind of be like, what? What's this? So it's a lot of fun. And a couple of quick comparisons with Harley here. We'll go ahead and stand her beside of the McFarlane Arkham Asylum Joker. I like these two together fine, but of course Joker is a 7-inch scaled figure, and it's pretty apparent here. Could you cheat it? Yeah, of course you could. And with a 6-inch scaled Joker from Mattel, these actually look okay together. We know that that Joker is a lot lower quality figure, but still, you know, with the scale being 6 inches, it certainly lines up correctly. Here we have her with Commissioner Jim Gordon. Look very good together. I think this Batman in particular, the PX version of the Sovereign Knight, I think it looks really nice with it because Batman has those kinds of bright colors for this version that goes well with this Harley. So I think they actually look pretty nice that way. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's just because I like the figure so much. But my favorite Batman to put her with, for whatever reason, appears to be the Supreme Knight version of Batman. I don't really know what it is. I think it's because he's so bulky. It might be that he is so matte and muted compared to, like, say, PX Sovereign Knight, that for some reason the contrast is really nice, especially in photos when you put them together. So I just really like the way that this looks. So in the end, I kind of have some complicated thoughts on the Mezco Deluxe Harley Quinn. There are certainly aspects of it that I absolutely love. I think the sculpting and the paint work on those head sculpts are absolutely tremendous. And I really do like the soft goods costume, and I can even deal with the collar. There are some things that are holding this version back. Until Mezco is able to upgrade those elbows on their female figures, it's going to be increasingly hard for collectors to shell out, you know, nearly $100 for a 6-inch figure that doesn't feature that, especially when other companies are offering $20 versions of female figures that do include those double joints, not just in the elbows, but in the knees as well. Until Mezco can get that sorted out, it's going to be increasingly difficult to suggest that people pay these kinds of prices. At the same time, if you're a fan of that old Alex Ross artwork, those striking paintings that he did of the Batman the Animated Series version of Harley Quinn, then it's going to be very difficult for you to pass up on this, especially because there is no better looking Harley that can go with your Mezco figures, and particularly if you have any of the Mezco Jokers. And she's a great complement to those figures. So, do I suggest her? I suggest her only if you're a Mezco Batman fan like I am. If you've been buying the other releases and the other villains and you decide that you're going to skip out on this Harley, you're probably making a big mistake. You know what's going to happen. The value is going to increase steadily. And, you know, when you're watching this video in a few years from now, who knows, maybe it doesn't do this, but it very well might go up pretty high in value. It's probably better to be safe than sorry and go ahead and pick it up, but that's not the only reason to get the figure. There are so many cool little touches, particularly with the accessories and particularly with the head sculpts, that the look of the figure is definitely enough to drive a purchase. So do I suggest her? Yes, but if you are not a diehard Mezco Batman fan and it isn't a line that you've collected all that religiously, and you have a version like the Icons Harley or DC Universe Classics Harley that you're already satisfied with and you don't own a lot of the other Mezco figures, you know, you can probably get away with not getting this one. But I really do like it, and I'm really satisfied that I got the figure, especially when it comes to the rest of my Mezco collection. And I have a feeling she's going to fit in very, very nicely. So, guys, I appreciate you watching, and thank you so much for choosing to spend a few minutes with Fanboys Forever today. We do appreciate each and every view, and especially each and every comment, which I do respond to each and every one. So we do thank you for your time. We also ask that if you would like to help us get to that 1,000 subscriber mark, we are getting so close, and our goal is in the next few months to certainly hit that big 1,000 subscriber mark. So we are definitely looking for your help on that. Thank you so much, and until next time, be safe out there, God bless, and I'll see you on Fanboys Forever.